if you have a kind of a plan or a reading list that you want your students to get through, or you want your children to get through, I think that's quite a good way of addressing that, because if you do read related text to the readers that you have in school, or things that you can, for example, parents can look at what year 9s or whichever age their children are in, look at the equivalent in the UK and look at what those children are reading or what they're reading in schools. You could ask your children to read those books, and that's a way of both preparing for eventually maybe going to the UK, but also helping the students with their own verbal skills exams in Hong Kong. Right, there's nothing that's going, that's not going to be damaging in any way if they're reading outside of their classroom text. In fact, it's going to help them. So I think that's one way where you kind of both help your grades here, but also at the same time prepare for the UK.
A typical pupil might go to a state school when they're 5, what's called a primary school. Then when they're 7, they might move to a local prep school, fee charging, an independent school. When they're 11, they'll move definitely to another school, a senior school, which could be a fee charging school. And then when they're 16, they might well change again. 60% of children move school at the age of 16 in England. You might go to a state school with very good exam results, or you might join a boarding school, as quite a lot of pupils do. So although we're talking about choice of school as if it's a one-off decision, in the example I've given, a typical child might well go to 4 different schools between the age of 5 and 18. And so you have to, parents, I'm afraid, have to keep thinking ahead and planning that route. It all depends how old your children are now and when you're planning to come to the United Kingdom. That will vary a bit from school to school. You've simply got to ask the schools. And that's true of state schools as well as independent schools. Independent schools are likely to be more flexible in terms of admission at a rather odd time. So let's imagine you were coming across on the new visa scheme this January. Well, I'm sure you've already made your plans if you're coming this January, but let's imagine you hadn't. So you move to an area and now you're thinking about, well, which school is my child going to go to? Maybe you moved at the end of January, so the term has already begun. So first of all, if you had nowhere to go and you could not afford an independent school, your child would be admitted to the local state school. The government would require your child to go to school, would find you a school. So there's no question of there not being a school. But an independent school, if you apply at an odd time, whether it's a day or a boarding school, is more likely to say yes, or at least to interview your child and take it forward, because they are more used to having pupils arriving at odd times. The challenge will be if you had a child, let's say, who was 15, who is arriving halfway through the British public exams course, which runs really from the age of 14 to 16 and then 16 to 18, then a school might say, well, it will be impossible for them to start halfway through the course, in which case they might say they'll have to start at the beginning of the course, so they'll be with children who are a bit younger. That's kind of, but I think the golden rule is apply, ask questions, work it out, assume that independent schools are going to be flexible. State schools will be less flexible, but you would be found a place if you really, once you'd moved to the country, you were in the United Kingdom, you will be found a place, whatever happens. I think I would say it's absolutely fine to move to start in a sixth form. So you move at the age of 16, and the course would normally begin in the September that your child is 16.